Hi, hello everybody. Back with another tutorial. This time it's not a drawing tutorial. This time I am working on fairy house projects. So today we're going to be talking about roof shingles. I just put all these on the other day, and this is what is going to end up being on the side of a fairy shop that I built out of wood. The bottom is going to be stone. I'm going to have a portico here. This is going to be half timbered. But today, all we're worried about are our roof shingles. I'm going to walk you through the process of how to do it, how to lay it out, and how to do it, how to make your life a little easier as you're working through this process, because this looks amazing. There's something really tactile and satisfying about seeing this type of thing, but it comes with its own problems like anything else, and it can be very repetitive to do. But we're going to flip this over, and let me get some of the cat hair off the edges there for you. I have two cats. We're going to flip this over, and I'm going to walk you through how I laid out, how I prepped the base here for the shingles, because that's kind of important. It may not be something everybody knows. So first I'm going to kind of talk you through it, and then we'll lay down a row or two of tiles so you can kind of see it in action. I didn't want to sit here and go through the process of drawing all these lines on camera, because I'm trying to make these videos of reasonable length for you, and I didn't think that was something you needed to actually see. So here we go with let's pretend I didn't put this row here. We have our board that we're working on for our roof. Now, I guess in most cases, if it's pre-made, it's going to be square. It's going to be a square, perfectly square. I cut this out myself. I thought I cut it perfectly square, but it's off by just a little tiny bit. Having said that, if your board is off by, a lot, don't work on it until you get it more square. So before we lay down shingles, a couple things we need to talk about. We need to make sure that our shingles are going to be straight across this way horizontally. Okay? They need to look good horizontally. Let me flip this over. So horizontally, they need to line up with each other, and they also need to be straight up and down. So your horizontal and your vertical line is important when you're talking about the roof, because if it's out of alignment, it's going to be incredibly noticeable, and no amount of detail work you do to it is going to make it look good. Okay, been there, done that. Sometimes I eyeball these things when I'm working on very small projects. I've done that in the past, and I've been fine with it. But if you're doing a big roof space like this, you need to prep it, because little mistakes, if you make a little mistake putting these rows on, after a while the rows start getting crooked, and then it sometimes creates exponential problems going down the line. So, all right, let's talk about this. So again, forget that I put this on here. I got a little overzealous, and I was like, oh, I got to put this first row on. All right, but let's pretend I didn't do that. When you start to measure, in the beginning, you're going to play a little bit with the spacing of it before you put any glue down, before you put any lines on here. You're just going to kind of play. And let me show you first the shingles that I'm working with. I'm an affiliate of Factory Direct Craft, so I bought these from them. I'll link to my blog. The blog will have the affiliate link on there, so you can see what we have. But let's open this up and I will show you. I'll show you a little bit about. Hopefully I don't ramble too much. I just woke up not long ago. It's early in the morning. I'm trying to stop myself from rambling. And anyway, they look like this. And kind of what you do in the beginning is you play around with the bottom row. Again, pretend I didn't put those there. And you just sort of play around with how your spacing of it and how you want things to be overlapped. Okay? And then once you kind of have an eyeball idea of what your work, how you want to create your overlap and your spacing, then you can go in and you can start guesstimating, not guesstimating, but drawing out your lines. Okay, so how you start is you pick a spot with your first tile and you decide where you want that tile to lay in relation to the bottom edge of, and again, I really wish I hadn't glued that first row on for you. But anyway, you want your first tiles, let me make sure I'm in here, to fall below the edge of your roof base there. You want that covered. You don't want that to show through. So you want those bottom ones, that's where you're going to start. You want those bottom ones to hang over. So you'll measure that so that it's covering your base at the bottom. And then what you do is with your pencil, you make a mark above the edge. Okay? Now once you have your mark above, then you can mark one side, use that same measurement from the mark you just made to the edge of your roof. You make a mark on one side of the board, mark on the other, and then connect the dots and draw a straight line across. Now, for the second one, the second row, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to make them, you're going to grab your tile and sort of lay it on top and decide where you're comfortable with your overlap. And you're going to mark above your tile. You'll use that measurement to make a mark on one side, a mark on the other side. Use a straight edge to create your line. Now, once you do that, the measurements between this line and this line is what you're going to use for the rest of the roof until you get to the top. So you're going to use that same measurement between this row and this row. You're going to repeat that same process all the way up to the top. You're going to make a mark on one side, mark on the other side, and then connect, draw a line across with your straight edge. Okay, so that all of these spaces going all the way up your roof should be equidistant, and that way you'll know that your spacing will be good. Now, before we get to putting any tiles on, we need to talk about something really quick. Well, I started talking to you about working with something that is not completely square. Because what will happen, and you'll see what happened to me, is when I made my marks, as we got to the top, I started to realize that these lines, while they were parallel to each other, were not parallel to my roof, because apparently I did something a little bit off with the roof. So what I did then is I just adjusted them a little bit down, just a little bit. And you won't notice that tiny little bit very much, because you don't see, this is all going to be capped by a piece of wood here. So you're not really going to see that. Just make sure it's not a major discrepancy, because you will see that. That will be noticeable. It'll be noticeable in how your overlaps appear on your shingles. Okay, so make any adjustments you need to make. This is the time to do it. It's way easier to make a mistake at this point and fix it than later on when you're dealing with your actual shingles, which cost money, and glue, which, you know, if you make a mistake, then you got to take things apart and kind of ruins your project, right? So spend some time on the prep work. Spend some time making sure that all of these lines are parallel to each other. And there's two points that are the most important to focus on. The first I just talked about is the roof. Make sure that these rows, when they are laid down, are going to be parallel to whatever treatment you put on your roof. If they're not parallel to the roof, it's going to be incredibly noticeable. You will notice it. So that is really important to make sure that that is a thing, that everything here lines up with your roof edge. The other thing that's going to be really noticeable is if your bottom edge of your tiles is not parallel to your surface, right? So like the floor, if these are not parallel to like a floor, you're going to notice that. So keep that in mind when you're drawing your lines. Make sure that this edge, this bottom row is going to be parallel to your floor. And make sure that you draw your lines so that when you get to the top, your rows are going to be parallel to your roof. Other than that, the rest of it is up to how you want to space it out, how you want to deal with it. All right, so I think we've covered how to measure. Mine ended up being, I think this is 5/8 space in between these. So, all right, so I think we covered everything we need to cover with that. Again, it's not that it's self-explanatory, but I didn't want to be sitting here spending the time drawing, but just know that drawing a guide like this is the most important way to make sure that you end up with a nice looking project when you're done. Okay, so when you lay down your first row of tiles, after this has all been planned out, you have your first row of tiles. We always lay down shingles from the bottom and working up. You always start at the bottom and work your way up, because the next row overlaps. So it's kind of impossible. You don't want to do it the other way around. Okay? So we start at the bottom and we start in the middle. So when you're spacing your first row before you glue it down, you're going to start in the middle. And the reason why you start in the middle is because the ends, as you see, are going to be chopped off. Usually you want to make those ends flush with the edge of your roof, right? So you start in the middle, and then you start placing, you place all of your tiles across, full tiles across on either side, and then you start adjusting them, and you can use, as your glue is drying, you can adjust them, you can move them, wiggle them around, and we're going to do that in a minute. I'll show you that in a minute. I do want to talk about glue real quick though. The type of glue that you use for this doesn't really matter. You can use whatever glue you want. You can use wood glue, you can use E6000, you can use, I've been using some of this Gorilla Glue. I also use E6000. You can even use Elmer's glue, school glue. But the one thing that I will say when you're doing these roof tiles is do not use quick drying glue. So don't use super glue or hot glue. And the reason why is because you're going to want to adjust these tiles as you go. You're going to want to make adjustments to them. And also with the glues that you do use, don't use enough to, it's going to hold your tiles down, but don't overdo it, because then you're going to have a gooey mess where your tiles are going to be sliding as they're setting. And you don't want them to do that. That you don't want your tiles to start sliding out of place, because what'll happen is they'll drift a little bit, and that ever so slight drift, once it's set, it's a problem getting it fixed. So don't use super fast drying glue, and don't use a lot of glue. Just use adequate glue, if that makes any sense. Okay, now that that's out of the way, we talked about where we start. We start in the middle, we work our way all the way across till we get all the full size tiles. And then the end tiles you're going to cut so that they're flush to your roof's edge. We're going to do that in a minute on this next row. All right, well, let me see if I can get my surface prepped here. I'm going to turn this around and prep my surface. Hopefully this is in frame. Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to do the second row today. And let me get some of these. I don't know why I didn't spend a little bit more time prepping my work surface, but I said it's early in the morning. And make some room here. Okay. So, let's bring this down. Yeah, I still have some stuff ready here from when I did the other side. Give myself a little bit of space. All right, now we're gonna lay down, once we have our first row, maybe let your first row set just a little bit before you move on. Just a little bit. I mean, you can continue to work on this, but it might be easier for you to let a row set for a few minutes before you move on to the next one. Okay, so the next row is going to overlap the first row. Now remember, we drew these lines here. That line should line up with the edge, the top edge of your roof tile, right? That tells you where to overlap. And when we put the second row on, it needs to overlap the first row in between two tiles, like that, okay? That's gonna create a really nice overlap, a really nice pattern for your roof tiles, all right? So, and again, you work in the middle, you start in the middle and you work your way out, because it's easier to make your adjustments, and you can always trim these ends, and we're going to do that in a minute. So let me get my handy dandy glue here. Today I'm using Gorilla Clear Grip. I'll probably be running out of this, and I'll be switching over to my E6000 glue, but for now, I've had people ask me about things being if the fairy houses I use can be used outside. I don't make them for outside at the moment. I prefer to make them for indoor decor. That may change in the future, but for now, mine are for indoors only. You will get glue all over your fingers. Prepare for a mess. Okay. So, sorry, I don't want that in the frame. My glue popped a hole in it as I was working with it, and realized I had glue all over my hands because there was a hole in my tube. All right, so maybe that's a little bit more glue than I'd like, but let's spread that out a little bit. All right. And a good thing about working with glue that's not quick drying is you don't have to rush to get through your application. All right, so we're going to lay down the first one in the middle somewhere. You're lining this edge up with the pencil edge that you drew. And you're just going, make sure this edge is down. Make sure you press down on it. Push them together. At this point, you're not be careful, but you're going to be able to adjust these. And you'll see, because you'll see the glue that I'm using, you can slide them around and adjust them. So you can move them that way, you can move them, straighten them out, move them this way, that way, whatever you need to do to get them straight. So this guideline here is there to help you keep everything aligned so that you can just go about your business. All right, I don't quite have enough glue at the end there. I'm going to add a little bit more glue to this side, especially up here on the end where the top of the line, because that's where the edge is going to meet. All right. This side. And this side. All right. Now what I like to do when I get this is just kind of make the adjustments so that it makes it easy for me to cut the end pieces. Now as I'm working through these roof tiles, as I'm cutting things, and let me just make sure that my line is good, it looks good. Okay. As I'm working through these roof edges and I'm cutting things, I don't throw out the pieces that I cut. And the reason why I keep them is because sometimes when you get to the end, you only have a sliver that you need, and maybe, we'll see if this works, maybe, just maybe, you have a piece that works perfectly fine on the edge, so you don't have to destroy a whole new tile to cut that. I think this works okay, but I think it needs just a sliver off the top. So now let me see if I am, yeah. All right, excuse my head if my head gets in the way. Try and keep my head out of the way if I can. I'm sure you don't want to look at the top of my gray hair. Now, talking about these end pieces, you can sand everything straight. So really what you're doing now is just kind of making them as flush as you can to the edge. The more time you take with that, the nicer it's going to look. And when you're putting the glue on, make sure you put it on the proper side. I have moments of senility sometimes, and I find myself trying to put glue on the wrong side. All right, and then it's just a matter of kind of pushing it into place. So I'm going to have to hit this with a little bit of sanding here. A little bit off. Alright, so this one over here is a bit more of a sliver. I'm just going to take one of my pieces and I'm just going to kind of measure right. You're going to measure to the edge. You're going to be a little more careful than I am. I don't want to get down in there because I don't want to put my head in front of the camera, but you are going to take the time to make sure that you have a, pretty sure I just took a sliver out of my fingernail there. All right. Yep. All right. I think I want to trim this just a little bit more. Again, I can sand it, but the less sanding I have to do, the better, happier I will be. All right, let's see. All right, I'm kind of happy with that. Okay, again, I'm not overdoing it with the glue or it'll be a hot mess. Okay. So now we have 2 rows. We have 2 rows on there. I have 2 cats and oh, sometimes their hair gets in the worst places. All right, push that down, make sure, and we can just keep going. This is just a matter of continuing the process. Again, I'm not going to do the entire thing on camera because it's just repetitive. After this row, you'll get the idea. All right. Again, I want to start in the middle. Line up the edge of the tile with the line. It is very, very repetitive and it can be very monotonous. But the result looks amazing. So these tedious projects can sometimes yield the most amazing results. And you see how easy it is. Once you have your lines drawn, you're not sitting here constantly guessing where to put your tiles, whether or not they're going to be straight, because they're going to be straight. As long as your lines are straight, they're going to be straight. All right. So we'll do a couple more of these tiles before I sign off here. Let's see, I thought I had. Let's see if this fits either side. I think it fits that side. Might need a little bit of a trim. Let's see if it fits this side. No, I'm not liking that side too much. All right. But we waste not, want not, right? So let's give this a little bit of a trim at the top because and when I'm off camera, I do way more meticulous with this. I don't want to put my head in the frame. So when you do this, take some, really take your time and get those edges nice and straight, nice and flush. You will thank yourself when you're done. Okay, make sure that your glue is going to be on the right side of it. Okay. And I need one more. And this will give me an opportunity to show you how to do this from a full tile. So essentially, lay down your tile next to it. Find where your edge is going to be here, where your edge is going to be there. And then you're going to use a straight edge to connect those two lines. Going to use your X-Acto blade, and you're just going to cut along that line. These are, I think they're balsa wood. They seem like they're balsa wood. So they're easy to cut. And you get the harder woods, it's going to be much more difficult to cut. There we go. All right, so I like that. I'm going to put some glue on it. Some glue. And yeah, see, I did it. Oh, no, I didn't. I thought I had a senile moment there. All right. So from here, because these are still setting, if I needed to push them around a little bit, push them up or down, I can do that because they're not quite set yet. Press down, make sure they're adhering to the roof. Press them in together, make sure they're stuck together to each other, they're flush with the side. And then just kind of as you work, pay attention to your lines, pay attention to your horizontal and your vertical lines, and make sure that none of your tiles are going this way. Make sure that your lines are evenly spaced, that your overlaps look like they're even, and that's all you do. So I'm not going to drag this on too much longer. I just wanted to kind of give you a little insight as to how to do dollhouse shingles, if you're working on a dollhouse or a fairy house or something like that. The key is in the planning. So this here, all these lines, this is where you do the hard work. You do all that ahead of time. It's going to make this process go so much faster and so much smoother. Okay, so I hope you learned something today. I'm going to be doing a lot more of these kind of projects. I'm getting into doing some fairy houses. I'm doing this shop. This is my half-timbered shop, which is being done more or less to scale. And then I have a castle that I'm going to be working on as well, a fairy castle. So for the month of October, I think those are going to be the projects I'm going to be working on, and I'll be throwing in some crafty DIYs. Usually it's drawing DIYs, but I'm going to be throwing in some crafty DIYs as I work through my building my fairy houses. I'll be sharing different things with you, things that I think you might find useful. So if you appreciate this kind of stuff, drop me a line down in the comments. Let me know. If you're watching this on Patreon and you're a supporter, thank you so much. Those of you on YouTube, please follow me on Patreon. I will have some of the same videos on Patreon, but I'll have maybe a few extra that are paid that kind of are maybe longer. They go a little bit deeper into details. That's a new Patreon page, so there's not a lot on it right now, but it is growing. And I would absolutely appreciate your support. I would love to be able to do much more in-depth videos and show you a lot of behind the scenes kind of stuff. So that's what I'm trying to do here. And again, if you're a YouTuber or YouTube watcher, you know, like, subscribe, share, leave a comment. That all helps my channel grow. I am almost at the point where I can monetize, almost. And hop on over to my Patreon page, check it out. Join as a free member for a little while if you like. And then from there, it's only $4 a month to open up some of the other videos. Also, I'm going to leave a link to the blog for this, where I have my supply list. I am an affiliate. I'm an affiliate of Factory Direct Craft. I'm an affiliate of Amazon, and I'm an affiliate of Blick Art. So I will have affiliate links for the supplies that I use in those in that blog. Okay, with that being said, I think I'm going to sign off here and just wish everybody happy crafting. If you have any questions, feel free to message me. If you would like to see something that I haven't done yet, let me know and I'll see if I can work it in. All right, happy crafting. Bye-bye.